Hi, this is Ofoy Murray, and this is the Battery Life Challenge for my Amazon Kindle 3rd generation. Came out in 2010, so right now it's 15 years old, but I did buy it with a brand new battery installed. So for all of my Battery Life challenges, there's just a little bit of housekeeping. I read every day for at least an hour. I definitely try to. I track the days it took me to finish the book. I track the actual hours I read. I track the battery percentage start and finish of the book. And I track the e-reader device or the device from 100% battery life down to 10%. I feel like for me personally as a techie, anytime I hit 10%, I do whatever I can to charge the device. I'm not a person who drains their devices all the way down to 0%. So I saw another booktuber who I like, and this was the Kindle that they read with. They were kind of a no-frills kind of person, and I just really taken by the nostalgic look of it. So I went online. I was able to get it for $72 with a brand new battery installed. And there were a couple things I definitely realized between a device from 2010 and a modern device. The first thing is the Wi-Fi. When you leave Wi-Fi on, it drains the device hard. And there was a huge difference between the battery life with Wi-Fi on and off. The other thing is the font selections. You can't actually pick different fonts. You can pick, they have one font and you can pick different types of that one font, and there's not a huge range in sizes. So for me reading it, it was kind of either too big or too small. I could never really dial in the font that I wanted. And of course, the biggest thing that I was surprised that I missed was the backlight. I realize now that for most of my e-readers, I generally keep my backlight on a little bit at all times. So having a backlight completely off, it was a little bit of a surprise to me at night when I would go into my bedroom and I realized that I had to turn on the bedroom light to read my ebook. It was definitely a throwback to the old physical book days. One nice thing is, although this device is 15 years old, it still worked perfectly fine with Kindle syncing. I was able to download the books using Send to Kindle. I was able to sync my content. So all of that worked perfectly fine. I did miss the touch screen because this doesn't have a touch screen, so everything is buttons. And also there are no graphic icons. It's all just words and lines until of course you open the book. And then when you open the book, you'll see the cover of the book. So let's start with the Amazon Kindle with Wi-Fi on. I read Arrow of God by Chineo Uchebe. I went from 100% power to 60%, and that took 129 pages. I read for 4 hours over 6 days. Then the next book I read was The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. That took me from 60% to 10%. And that was 125 pages, and I read for 2.75 hours over 3 days. So for the total battery life, I read for 9 days, and over that 9 days, I read for 6.75 hours. That's pretty dismal. That's modern cell phone battery life. There are modern cell phones, to be honest, that have better battery life than that reading. And that's mainly because the Wi-Fi just completely drained the battery. And I would imagine Wi-Fi from 15 years ago and comparing it to Wi-Fi now, it's just probably much more energy efficient. So with Wi-Fi off, I've finished off The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. That took me from 100% to 58%, and that was over 532 pages. I read for 7.5 hours over 10 days. And then I read Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hobb. And that took me from 58% to 10%, and that was 425 pages I read over that span, and I read for 10.13 hours over 6 days. The total battery life for the Kindle 3rd Gen with Wi-Fi off was over 16 days. I read for 17.63 hours. Looking at all the devices I've read on so far, the Kindle with Wi-Fi on was just horrible. The only thing that was worse was my iPlay 50 Mini NEF, and that had mediocre battery life to begin with. So I just know it was the Wi-Fi that was killing it, because with Wi-Fi off, I got a respectable 17.63 hours. It made it the lowest of the e-ink e-readers at 17.63, but 17.63 still made it higher than any of the LCD e-reading devices that I used, with it just barely beating the TCL 50 Next Paper 5G on max ink mode, which kind of once again lets you know how good that max ink mode is, that it came close to actually rivaling an e-ink reader's battery life. Once again, I love this device because of the nostalgia, but mainly because I can't dial in the font exactly the way I want. This probably won't rise to any of my daily drivers or mains as far as my e-reading devices. Every now and then I might read a book on it, but probably it's just going to be sitting someplace where in a case or a shelf where I can kind of just showcase the old school nature of it. So this is 04 Murray. I hope this was interesting to you. Keep reading.